Hi and welcome. This is the Play Ball Academy version of the Couch to Coach program. I was going to call it Coach to Couch, but that's kind of what what happens after we're finished coaching. We get on the couch and we put our feet up. The idea behind the program is for you coaches, you parents, to be able to build yourselves up to stay strong. We already focus as coaches, and I've been coaching for a long time, most of my adult life. We're very focused on our kids. We're very focused on providing a good experience for them. As I get older and as I put more coaching mileage under my belt, I realize that we also have to be able to take care of ourselves. We have to be in a strong position. Our energy has to be good. It's harder to coach when we've got a splitting headache. It's harder to coach when we're sore, when our back is sore. So I wanted to create a little bit of an environment where we can share some information that helps you stay strong and be at your best. Be at your best, obviously, for your coach, for your kids, and for the experience that you want to provide. We also know that during this time, and I'm filming this as we're into week 6 or 7 around COVID-19, there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of information around exercise and workouts and what should we be doing and doing at home and what equipment do we need. So I want to provide something that was simple, something that you can build into your day, something that build up your body and your strength, and basically adapt to what you're doing, to where you're at. And that's probably the biggest thing. We want to create, in my world, in fitness and exercise, we want to create a situation where you can build something into your day. We know that doing something often is more important than a high intensity 2-3 times a week. If you can do a little bit every day, you're a little bit better off than blocking out a big time, especially when blocking out a big time is not reasonable. So wanted to create something that was simple, something that you can do at home with minimal or no equipment. I have, what we'll use today is, I'll use an example around a water jug. I have a band. Most of the kids have bands at this point. We can use that. I'll show how we can use basic stick or bat to help us with some body positioning and even some maintenance work using a softball or a practice ball. First thing we want to do, if you're going from not doing much or having much physical activity or much strength training, is to identify really what's most important, or the role that strength training can play as we get to not only take the field, but as we get a little bit older. And we know that obviously as we get older, things start to decline. We don't feel quite as energetic as we used to. But in fact, we decline more with inactivity, or we decline more by doing the wrong things than we do with aging. Aging's much more gradual, and some of these habits can help us as we go, as we get a little bit older. So one of the things that we want to try and do out of the gate is just to assess a little bit about where we're at. If we're sore, not sore. If you've got, as we get a little bit older, we all have our own histories. We have sore knees, back, maybe our shoulders from not only batting practice that we're throwing, but also the time that we're spending at the office. Maybe we're, as most of us, we're sitting a lot. So what are some of the things that we can do, not only to get out of those habits, but build ourselves up so that we're even stronger than we were yesterday? And the first message would be, that today's a great day to start with something. So thanks for joining me, and why don't we get started? The second thing is, as we're looking to identify what we're comfortable with, one of the areas that people struggle a lot with is their core, their back pain, soreness. So we're going to do a quick assessment to see how you feel in and around core strength. And it's not that complicated, but it is simple, and it's not necessarily easy. But we get into a basic plank position, and we can do a lot of things from this position. And here's a basic plank, forearm plank if you will, and we're into nice tight core, glutes, legs are squeezed, and we hold that. If you can hold this for about 30 seconds or up to 2 minutes, you're in a really, really good range. But the idea here to start is, start with 15 or 20 seconds. Start with a simple plank. And don't let your body sag. Don't want to be up too high. Just a simple plank. And that will tell you if this is sore, then we need to bring it down a notch. Or if we want to go up a little longer, we could do that if it's too easy. So if this creates a little bit of soreness and you're not that comfortable, you can get into what we call a dead bug. Dead bug is this position into this position, and you're alternating, and hold, 3, 2, 1, and back up, hold, 3, 2, 1. How does your body feel when you do this? 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. A lot of the movements that we do today aren't involving a lot of movement. They're going to be a lot of holds. And during these two basic exercises, you can get a good indication of how you feel. If you feel okay on that plank, then go a little bit longer. I would start with 30, 45 seconds for your first day. Go on to something else and maybe come back to it. Again, if you're a little bit sore, you have your dead bug. You also have, if the plank bugs you, you can start with, also do a bird dog, alternating again, holding, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1. You only have to do this a few times, and it really works to engage your core. So as we grew up, when we were much younger, there was a lot of emphasis on sit-ups, and there was a lot of emphasis on crunches, and they have their place. But these are a little bit easier to get started with, especially if you haven't done some core work. And we're big believers in core strength as the kind of the foundational to help with back pain, to help with overall fatigue and everything from there. Next thing what we can do is we can get into a bear crawl using core again. All fours, taking 5 steps, 2, 3, 4, 5. Looking to engage core, keeps hips still. Once you've gotten into that position, you can do real small steps to the side. 3, 4. I'm doing real small steps, and my hips are not moving. These are great activities to take the kids through, by the way. We do them at different levels. Elite athletes work in different variations of these exercises. So they're very fundamental. They're very beneficial. Assessing where you are on core strength, you can do different things and you can see right away. I'm starting to breathe a little heavy, and that's a very basic movement. There's not a lot of dynamic movement going on here. Next thing what we can do is, once we're on the ground, one of the things we forget or don't do enough is get ourselves up and down from the ground. We just don't have to in our walk of life. So a really good exercise that's very basic is to get yourself up, figure yourself out as to how. It doesn't really matter, there's not a right way or a wrong way. Start by using one hand or two. One's a little harder than two. No hands getting yourself up are harder than one. And get yourself up. And then get yourself down. Next thing you can do is use your other hand. And you may say, well, that's pretty simple. Well, see how you feel. You can make this harder or easier as you go. How do you make it harder? Hold something as you're going up or down. Again, one hand is a little easier than two. If I wanted to hold something or get myself into a position where I'm not using any hands to get myself up, it's a great, gets the heart rate going. 3 to 5 each side. How does your body feel when you do that? Knees, hips, everything okay? and we can keep progressing. If not, then you go back to just some basics of breaking it down into different aspects of the movement. We just don't get up and down very often. Other aspect to the movement that you may want to break down is working on how your hips feel. This is the first motion, and a great exercise to work on strengthening in and around your hips and just getting into that first set position. Okay, so we've done some core, we've done some basic movement. Let's get into a little bit of leg strength. One of the things that we don't do very often, and this is highlighted whenever you have to catch for one of your kids, if you can catch, especially for us guys, getting into a squat position doesn't have to be more complicated than this. It's just practicing. Are you able to hold this for a period of time? Are you able to get out of this position without feeling anything? If you can't go all the way down, you start. But here, these are just simple squat holds. And again, if it's uncomfortable, you can modify the range of motion. You can modify what you do. So if this is too much, another thing that you can do is you can take something. If you find that anything with weight, if you find that getting into the squat is too hard, here's a counterbalance. That'll make it a little bit easier for you. Okay, a counterbalance is one way to do it. Doesn't make it harder. Squat holds are great, like planks. Get into that position, hold. If you can get up to a minute or two without any discomfort at all, you're in a good spot. So that's a great assessment. Let's work a little bit on leg strength. Leg strength, if you wanted to go into a squat position, you go at about 90 degrees, 5, 4, and hold it all the way down to 1. Then you're back up. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Off you go. You can do that 5 to 10 times. And you'll notice any of these things that we're doing, basic movement. Movement that we don't get to practice. So that works a little bit on glute strength, leg strength. If we spend a lot of time standing, as we do, you're going to need to integrate core and legs. Now let's get into something into the backside. We're going to do what we call the hip hinge, which is a fundamental movement that, again, unless you consciously practice it, you don't do it. So the hip hinge is basically taking if you're in an athletic position, moving your hip back as the first movement to bending forward. Rather than leaning forward, here's a basic hip hinge. So this is a good practice to just get into hip hinge. We work on this with the kids. It teaches them to use their glutes and their legs rather than bending at the lower back. Avoids a lot of problems. And how we build that into an exercise that has some value is we start with a kickstand start, one leg, kickstand, and we work on a hip and reach, hip hinge and reach. And you notice my first move is backwards. I can reach 2 hands, I can reach with 1. Once you've done 4 or 5, get that kickstand. The more narrow the kickstand, the more balance is required. So you can move, get yourself set up for whatever's most comfortable. And I'm only leaning forward after my hip goes back. And I'm using all glutes, and I'm building up that powerhouse around the upper legs, the glutes, and I'm not putting a lot of strain on my knees or ankles. This exercise, you find that really easy, you now integrate some balance, and that's the next component. Balance is one of those things that we lose if we don't practice. There's a lot of things we lose. Balance is one of them, reaction time, the ability to move things quickly or power. As we spend more and more time sitting and doing less activity, these things go away if we don't practice them. So balance is another good one. So I take that basic hip hinge movement, and now instead of kickstand, I move myself back. I hold that. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go back again. I can get this leg up if I want. That's less important as the hip hinge. I can get an airplane position, find that balance point, and then do 3 or 5 on one side. Same idea on the other. What can make this more difficult? A lot of folks would jump into, we'll just add some weight. Before you add resistance to anything, you want to make sure the quality of the movement is good and you're strong. One of the ways that you can increase level of difficulty is you hold it for a little bit longer. So instead of 5 seconds, hold it for 10 seconds. Work your way up like a plank, like a squat. Hold yourself up to for 30 seconds, and you'll find that the level of difficulty goes up, your heart rate goes up. Again, there's nothing complicated about anything that we're doing here. It's just not necessarily easy if you don't practice it. Okay, next thing we want to work is one of the areas that a lot of folks, again, don't practice and run into a little bit of trouble because they get into a push-up. Push-up is a great exercise because it works a lot in the upper body. There's a lot involved. But if you haven't done push-ups in a while, to just jump into doing push-ups is probably a recipe to tweak something in your shoulder, especially. So the first thing we want to do is when we're doing our push-ups that our arms aren't completely flailed out, we're kind of in a W. And if you haven't done a push-up in a while, I like a step, moving on it and working with a step, any step, staircase, whatever the case may be. When you move your hands up, this makes it a little bit easier. So we have learned that modified push-ups, you can get into this position on your knees, and it'll make it a little bit easier. This will also make it a little bit easier. A little bit higher makes it even easier. So the higher you go, the less resistance there is. The lower you go, all the way down to flat, and the reverse being a push-up in this position, that's harder than a flat push-up. So we'll start here, and we just want to get into basic push-up position. Control your body on the way down, hold, and then up. So instead of rattling out a whole bunch of repetitions, you focus on slow on the way down, hold, and up. And one of the drills I do with young kids who are just building up their body strength is I just focus on the downward side, and this is a good one for us too. Meaning, on the way down, you count to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You release. You use your knees to get back up. Reposition. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You release. Reposition. You do 4 or 5 of those. It's easy on the body, and you're still building your strength. So we've covered some lower body, we've covered some balance, we've covered getting up from the floor, we've covered some core. Really keep it simple. Lots of modifications you can do to make it easier or harder. Adding weight or repetitions aren't the only way, and sometimes they can be a destructive way to build up body strength. The last thing I'll leave you with today is figure out something that increases your work capacity, meaning your ability to do stuff. So that could be walking, hiking, cycling, working around the yard. A lot of folks think, going for a run is the only way to build up your capacity, or going to the gym, getting on one of those machines, and that's all good. That has its place if that's what you like. If you don't, going for a walk is awesome. Going at a faster pace for a little bit of time on your walk and then slowing down is a form of interval training. That's awesome as well. Other things you can do around the house is you take something that has some resistance, water jug for example, laundry container, and you go for a walk. So if this were full, it runs about 40-45 pounds. And this is what we call a suitcase walk. You could use a suitcase. Go to the backyard. Nice tight core. And off we go. We're just walking. And you walk from all the way here, back. You do that for a minute or two, then you take a break, you do it again. The idea is when you're walking to keep that good strong posture, keep this a little bit away from the body. That's how you know if it's too heavy, you start walking this way. Being able to lift things, being able to do so in a good strong body position is one of the ways that we can get stronger. And if you combine it in a simple activity like that, it increases your body's ability to do stuff. And trust me, the time that we spend at coaches on the field with the kids, it's not easy to keep that energy going. So being strong and then making sure that you're ready, game ready, it will help a lot. And even if you're not, parents, if you're not coaching, these are things you can do with your kids. These are things you can do on your own. These are things you can do at the beginning of the day. These are things you can do at the park over the years that I was coaching. I incorporated into my routine. In the years that I wasn't coaching, I actually did those things off to the side while the kids were getting ready as my son was playing. So hopefully this is the first in many. I'll start posting a few different options every week. Welcome your feedback on Facebook or Instagram at greg.lawler on Instagram. Just Greg Lawler, GreglawLor on Facebook. Anything you'd like me to cover? This is a great opportunity for us as play ball coaches to be able to give something back to you guys that gives so much for the kids. We enjoy working with them, and we just thought we'd give you some coaching tips on how we can stay strong as well this time and moving forward. So thanks again. Appreciate you spending time. I hope you enjoyed it.